8:15.
Hang on a second. I say go on.
Did you get the stuff I sent you? You did?
July.
All right. Okay, we're live. It is 8:15. It's still 8:15. How do you like that? Good. Doug is excused. The rest of us are here. Good to see you, Jason. How are you? Okay. We'll call it to order. And like I said, Doug is excused for this morning. We need a motion to approve the agenda by Doak, seconded by Scott. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The minutes were approved at the county board meeting, so we don't have to approve the minutes. No one's here from the public, so we'll move forward. Tracy, how about you? You can start it off.
So good morning. The first thing I just wanted to mention, it's not on the agenda, but I just wanted to bring some attention as to some things, if they occur here in Kewaunee County, that would trigger when our office has to report to our regional director to the state. So anytime Kewaunee County has an EOC opening, whether that is partial or full activation, anytime there is a tornado touchdown or straight line winds in the county, which results in property damage, injuries, or death. If we have a MABUS activation for large fires that goes over more than one county. Anytime that we open shelters, whether it's for heat, evacuees, power losses. If we have a hazmat spill response to an event, which was when we would call in level A hazmat team. If we have any unknown or white powder incidents. If we have any emergency declaration in the county or municipality as a result of natural disaster, man-made disaster, or a public health crisis. Significant demonstrations or protests, including Department of Correction institution riot or disturbance, like we don't have that part here. Anytime a call is sent to the Wisconsin Emergency Management Duty Officer for county assistance. If we have a degradation of infrastructure and facilities in the state from natural or man-made event with environmental or social impact. So if we had a dam failure, transportation issue, power generation, water supply, communication issues, we would notify them. If we had significant widespread power outages here in the county, this could be unrelated to weather, whether it's a grid failure or sabotage. If there was an active search and rescue in the county where additional resources are being requested. If there's requests for explosive ordnance detachment, the bomb squad were to be called in. Any request for National Guard assistance, and then notification for an unusual event, alert, site area emergency, or general emergency at Kewaunee or the Manitowoc nuclear power plants. So this was something that the regional director from Fond du Lac sent me that I need to make sure if there's something going on, I need to notify him so he can notify the state.
Can you get a listing of that, like in a form that you would post in dispatch or something? Because my guess is some of those slip through. I mean, like I made this call where it can look do not that big a deal. Probably you haven't been contacted.
No, yeah. And I know that emergency management's on the MABUS cards, but I don't know what level exactly. But yeah, I can send over the PDF, and I do have a paper copy for you too.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
So the
How's
next
your budget looking?
budget's looking fine. There's nothing out of the ordinary. So you guys all had a copy of the budget. Did anyone have any questions about anything on the budget?
By the way, I was late in sending that budget out to you guys. Sorry about that. You can whip me with a wet noodle sometime in the future.
Okay, if there's no questions, again, everything is right on schedule with that. The next on there is reviewing upcoming training and exercises. So I did want to mention that in April, we did hold tornado drills for all of the county offices, and those went very well. We did not have people follow the regular tornado drills still due to COVID. We sent out a rave alert in which then everyone had to notify. They had followed some directions. They had to go downstairs, check in, and then they were able to leave. So it just went very well. And it's a good reminder for new employees as well as current employees where they have to go. The other thing we've got coming up next week, Tuesday, you guys have been made aware of it, is we have a presentation being put on by Chief Deputy for if there would be an active threat. So that is for the county employees. The other thing in regards to training and exercises is my portal monitors for nuclear drills and exercises have stopped working properly. So there's just been some issues with that. The state had some extra money in their budget. So they bought 2 new portal monitors for Kewaunee County for our drills and exercises. So that was no cost to Kewaunee County. The state covered that. And that was in the amount of approximately almost $25,000 that they paid for those for us. So next on the agenda is update on sirens. So I just want to talk about getting an action on the change in siren procedure. So for years, on the first Wednesday of the month, we would do a 1-minute activation. And then on the third, and that is a 1 minute where the siren is going off, and that is to test the system. And then on the third Wednesday of the month, we would do what is called a growl test. It just kind of makes a small growl for about 10, 15 seconds. That was always done for the nuclear power plants purposes because they had to show to the NRC the capability that the sirens are always functioning. With that, Point Beach is now going to be IPAWS, or is IPAWS primary for notification. They're not maintaining the sirens, so they don't need these reports to be sent to them. So there's no need to continue to do what is called a growl test. Other counties don't do it. So I guess wanted to make some awareness that our office will discontinue doing that unless you guys see a reason I need to continue. All right, thank you. So brief on COVID-19. Well, it's going to kind of be covered in the virtual EOC brief update, which we held yesterday. And yesterday was the last one that was held for COVID-19 for the pandemic. In that we tried to capture things that went well, things that didn't go well. So in the event of an after action report being pulled from this, we've got information to put in there. Also to help us realize if there's any areas for improvement we need to work on. So public health was not able to attend, but they did send me information on how things are going in the county. So shot clinics are winding down. As you guys probably know, the county sits at about 38% of personnel being vaccinated, and that is for vaccines that were given by public health, as well as those that went outside of the county to receive vaccines. School restrictions are somewhat back in place. UW Extension reported that they're getting back to normal. One thing they noted with some of the farmers when they do their Zoom calls, while in the beginning it was appreciated because of all the guidelines and things coming forth, it's very distracting when we do virtual meetings because when you do them from home, there's always things that become a priority. So people are looking forward to getting back to face-to-face meetings. Public information. I don't know if you guys all follow what our public information officer puts out for COVID-19. She continues to update the county website. She has been utilizing Zoom with some of the Zoom interviews that can be held. And then one thing that she has found to be very beneficial is if, like with public health, when they're busy, the local media has been very receptive of a written statement being sent to them right away. That gives a better positive image of Kewaunee County for an immediate response instead of when we're busy and not able to answer the calls of just as they may feel ignoring them. So that has been a good positive as well. What else? Law enforcement and highway both did mention that the staff that wanted vaccines have received the vaccines. There may be a few more that are reaching out. Law enforcement has not had any problems getting PPE. Sometimes it's been more costly. And then other times there's been things that our office has been able to provide through the PPE distribution that we get from the state, and they also receive stuff from the Badger State Association. Emergency management, we continue to do the mortuary survey 3 times a week. I did mention last time that we are discontinuing the PPE distribution every 2 weeks. We will continue to fulfill any requests from emergency responders with the current PPE inventory that we have. The state EOC is transitioning away from their biweekly PPE survey going out, and they're going to be handing that over to Department of Health Services as of the end of June. We continue to coordinate the volunteers for the vaccination clinics, but as that is winding down, there's less need for the volunteers. Red Cross is continuing to do virtual responses, and they can help clients virtually. But one thing that they realized is Zoom is very beneficial for day-to-day operations. But when there's a large incident, it's very hard to do that via Zoom because you are missing out on a lot of sidebar conversations where when someone is working on a project, if you overhear it, you can handle that instead of not knowing about it. And then the DNR continues to follow their state guidelines. One thing that did come up is, virtual platforms are very beneficial to a degree. Normal day-to-day operations, short meetings, it saves on travel time. But when there is longer meetings or training purposes, that's better being done in person. That's all I have on COVID-19.
Tracy, you said they're winding down the vaccinations. How long are they going to go yet? You're talking about the fairgrounds?
Correct. So that would be a public health question. I know that right now we do still have clinics scheduled up through the beginning of June. And then I know public health has been holding some here as well. The number of people coming to the vaccination clinics in Luxembourg is going down. And obviously then for public health to hold it here is more convenient for them,
Right.
which is great. So
But there's still other places that are giving them also, pharmacies and.
yes.
Yeah.
And public health is continuing to do vaccines as long as they've got people that will get them. But if they don't have enough interest, they don't want to go and request vaccines that they then have to try to find an arm to put it in, or they have to return. Some of them have a specific time period that they have to be used in.
Right. So are they still by appointment or is it just walk-ins too? Or
They had some walk-ins. So there was walk-ins. Kim, do you remember seeing it on their Facebook? They had it posted on the county website as well as public health website for any walk-in clinics. So for people that are interested in that, they can just kind of watch for the week of to find out when those walk-ins are. Any other questions?
Any questions for Tracy?
Yep. So what was the outcome of checking on tornado places that are available?
Oh,
Do they have to have basements?
yes, a tornado shelter is required to have a basement. If there isn't one, obviously an inner room, but the purpose behind that was the Village of Luxembourg changed one of their shelter locations. Now, there's no requirement for any municipality to have a tornado shelter or a storm shelter. But with that, then we decided, let's go through and make sure that what we do have listed is correct for the municipalities.
Is there a capacity you need? How many people?
Not
could
that
fit?
I need, but it's dependent on your municipality. So if you've got a large number of individuals that need a shelter to go to, or if you're an entity that maybe holds a lot of outdoor events that in the event of severe weather, you need to direct people where to go. So that is the only purpose for our reach out.
We should have left the old school up. That was a big basement.
And with that, with any municipality that lists a storm shelter, we want to make sure that one, it's accessible. Two, that if there is a severe weather that needs to be opened up, someone has to be responsible for opening it. And we don't want to put that on fire departments or law enforcement or anybody else. It's got to be a place that someone's going to be available to unlock it.
Okay. And it sounds like the EOC building will be able to be rented out soon with a capacity of 200 people.
The EOC, at the fairgrounds?
The fairgrounds.
The exhibit hall?
Exhibit hall. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you meant the EOC room.
No, your office will be.
Yeah.
That was it.
You're gonna limit it to 200 in
Yes, so Roar on the Shore is kind of out with 800 people, shoulder to shoulder for right now. The next bookings, we heard that last night at Park, so. Cindy
how
was,
far out are they gonna do 800?
don't know yet.
Okay. Because we have a meeting next Monday, so
I'll have to talk to Dave.
I'll call
That was
him.
it.
I know. Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Tracy? If not, let's move forward, and Jason, you're up.
Was there, Tracy, did you cover the computer and hazmat response equipment grant? Okay, I must have the old one. Sorry about that. So the budget that I have is the same one that we had our last meeting. I don't think Paul updated that yet, right?
The March is still the same budget. Let me think. This is the newest and greatest that I've got.
Is
Okay,
there,
we won't get it. We'll get the budget for April probably in 2 days.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
So-
had Marches for last meeting though. So,
Yeah, because March, for whatever reason, we got March early.
right.
Okay,
So really, there's nothing new in it. It's what we had at the last meeting.
correct.
So, staffing, I guess I can talk about next,
Okay.
if there's no questions on budget anyway. So staffing, not a lot has changed, but we're looking forward to June here because in June, we have 2 people coming back. Well, actually 2 people that are done training. Our 1 person on military leave should be back. And we will only be 2 people down, 1 on patrol that was out with an injury and 1 that's out on maternity leave. We can handle being 2 down without increasing overtime. So that's good. We have posted the last meeting, we talked about training somebody else in cross training. So that's somebody in our jail that gets trained to work patrol so that if somebody goes out on FMLA or somebody quits from patrol or retires, we can transfer a person out right away, and it helps us alleviate overtime by having that extra person that we can move either way. We posted for that. The posting's due this Friday. I know there's a few people that'll be applying at least from in our jail. So that's all good. I do have.
Thank you.
So it might be a little different version than what you've seen in the past. This is how I'm probably going to do it. If you look at the 3 columns, I was asked last time to compare previous years with this year's, so you have a better idea of what we're looking at. So there's a 2019, a 2020, and a 2021 column. I just noted on the 2020, that was a COVID year, which kind of throws things off, but it really isn't that much off for overtime. And then the bottom 2 columns is what you're probably interested in, the overall total and total without holiday, because I don't know, holidays are kind of goofy to me that they're on our overtime budget because there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. Holidays come up, and the reason they're different in different years is because it goes by the last paycheck of the year. So this year, the 31st and 1st actually got paid on last year's. So we have less overtime this
Mhm.
year. So that looks good, but it's really beyond our control. It'll be high probably next year because it'll be the opposite way. We might have Christmas on next year's budget.
Mhm.
So it's just how the last time card of the month works out. So we're pretty much in line. We're a little bit higher than normal, not a lot. And I think that's really good considering we are 2 positions down in the jail, 1 person on military leave, the school liaison officers on FMLA, and then we had the patrol officer that was injured. So really we're 5 people down, and our overtime is within 100 hours of where we usually are at this point. Once people come back in June, the other good thing is that's going to really bring our overtime down. So we
Yeah.
shouldn't be accumulating that much more. So although we're a little bit high now, I'm confident that that's going to come back into right about where it normally should be once we get everybody back. The only thing I can foresee going up this year is training a little bit, because we didn't send anybody to training last year because of COVID. We still had our in-house training, but nobody that needed recertification and stuff like that went to their classes. So this year we have to kind of make up for what we didn't do last year. Any questions on overtime? Okay, on to jail study progress. So I know Scott has gotten stuff out to contractors to try and get estimates on our current jail. I think he's running into a little bit of problems with people jumping at that. I'm sure contractors aren't, they look at it like, okay, you have the oldest jail in the state. Chances are, if I give you an estimate, you're not going to go with it anyway. So they're not real excited about coming in and then giving an honest estimate, thinking that it may not go. And they're dealing with, such an old design that they're probably not used to working with that type of stuff anymore. But he's got some leads on a couple different companies that are probably going to give a estimate. And I think it's just going to take a little bit longer for that to come in. I know he sent out requests to other counties about their jail projects. We had received feedback from a couple of counties. He was requesting what the jail study committee asked for, in that kind of a breakdown, separating the cost of the jail from, like, if a sheriff's department was attached to it, and then separating costs of like kitchen area and programming areas and stuff. I don't know that we're going to get answers from those other counties on those things, to be honest. You'll get an overall cost, but if you think about how our process went, so initially, when our jail study committee, we looked at the whole, okay, if we build a jail, how much is it to add on the sheriff's department? It was something like 4 million to add on the sheriff's department. If we would have continued to go forward with that, the overall cost was like 35 million, right? We would have tweaked that, right? As it went forward, we'd added rooms, subtracted rooms, and whatever it would be, but it would have been an overall project that you talked about. So the sheriff's department added an EOC room maybe, or whatever, and it brought the cost up a little bit. That's probably what happens in the other counties. So they never go back to separating the two and saying, well, how much difference was it? Well, it was 4 million when we started, but you don't go back to that 4 million and say, oh, we added a $500,000 by adding this EOC room, and we took off the garage, so we subtracted $750,000, whatever. You don't go back to that. You just move forward, and it's an overall cost from that point. That's why I think he's going to have problems, because they don't really know, what the kitchen costs. All they know is the overall cost of the jail, and it costs more for the pods than it does for the programming in the kitchen, but it may be very difficult to separate those things. But I would anticipate the overall cost is going to come back, and maybe a little bit of a breakdown on the pod costs, because those things are probably separated, like how many positive pressure rooms you have and stuff are an actual cost of the jail that probably was separated, and they'll be able to get that. They basically put the meetings on hold for the jail study committee until these different costs come in and we get somebody to come in and give a review of upgrading our jail. So we're just at the mercy of waiting for these things to come in. And I guess that's where we're at. Hopefully those things come in before too long, because we do have to keep moving forward. If one way or another, we're going to go to a referendum on this. Any questions on that? Okay, and then update on Next Generation 911 grant. We're extremely happy with how that is coming in. The the dispatchers are getting used to it. You know, it's new technology. So when you go from something you're really used to something that has a lot more options and different things that you can do with it, it's a little bit of a learning process for them to work through. One of the big hiccups we found out was we didn't have enough phone lines. So one of the options you can do now in dispatch is you can transfer somebody. The problem is, and I'm not real sure how this works, but when you transfer a line, it still stays on your line. So you're using that line even though there's two other people talking and you're not on it. So the dispatch will transfer a line to maybe a victim calls up and they want to talk with the officer, and the dispatch transfers it to the officer, but that line continues to be used. So we had to add a couple of lines because we were running into problems with if there's only 2 lines left, the system would not allow you to transfer it because the system is detecting that if 2 people call up to the sheriff's department, they're not going to get through. They're going to get a busy signal, and that's not good. So they added 2 lines. We're not sure on the cost of that, but I'm guessing it's a fairly minimal cost when you look at how many lines we have at the entire county, you know, to add a couple of lines. Since they added those lines, the system has been working very well. But one of the issues that came up with it is they added the lines and there was a recording problem. So all of the lines weren't recording like they should have been. And they were working on that, and they were confident that they were going to get it all in place. One of the emails said they're actually recording, they're just labeled wrong. And then somebody else said, no, I think there's still a line that's not being recorded. It hasn't been an issue of importance. Of course, we want all of our lines recorded in case something comes up, but 95% of calls that come in, we don't need the recording, and it'll be fixed. I'm confident it'll be fixed very soon if it's not fixed already. That was the biggest kinks. There's also a kink with some paging tones that some fire and rescue aren't happy. What they like to do is have their radio on digital scan, and an option that we had with the old system, and actually this wasn't working on the old system for the last 6 months or so, but you could, it gave out a certain tone so that you knew somebody was being dispatched, and then you could turn up your radio and listen to it when you hear this tone. And it was good for officers to hear that too, patrol officers that are on that are working the road, because that way they know, oh, dispatch is busy, they're paging out rescue for something or whatever, and they could turn on their scan and listen to it. That hasn't been working. We had Vacom working on it and they just can't seem to figure it out. And Matt was able to contact somebody from Texas that originally set it up, and he doesn't remember how he set it up, but he thinks he'll work with Vacom and they'll be able to get it back in line, so it'll be working. It's some sort of patch that was done by EF Johnson that, we just locally, we aren't able to figure out how they did that patch, but hopefully that'll all be worked out in the fairly near future now that we got the guy that actually set it up. One thing I forgot to talk about on the jail study progress, and I wanted to cover, was if I can back up just a little bit. So I think all of you know that Nancy from the state, the jail inspector, gave us some things that had to be fixed. We did get the bunk beds ordered. They were about $3,000 for 2 bunk beds, which wasn't bad. We thought that, so they had a little piece of glass on a viewing portal that was broke. It was cracked and that had to be replaced. And we kind of thought, well, we get a piece of plexiglass and throw it in there and it'll be fixed for a very minimal cost. Well, it turns out the glass is about 1 inch thick, and jail inspector said it has to be fixed the way it was intended to be fixed. It's $1,000 for that little piece of glass. So we ended up ordering it. I mean, what are you UV light, we got personal protective equipment. Now they have a second grant. This grant is competitive as opposed to the first one was if you put in for things that qualified under the grant, you got them. This one is up to I think $100,000 and maybe even in a little bit of an excess of that. But certainly there's only certain things that qualify for it and it's competitive. So you may or may not get it. We really did some searching of things that qualify for it. And we put in for some software for our squad car cameras, some software for Microsoft related for our squad cars, some audio video equipment, a pressure washer, protective needle-proof gloves for officers, things along those lines. It came to us complete total of about $85,000 that we put in for. And we're just in a wait and hold pattern to see what we all get. Our idea is we may not get all of it, but we think we'll get a good portion of what we put in for, or at least we're hoping for that. I guess it just depends what other counties put in for and how much money there is and how that gets allocated. But we'll be watching that closely, hoping we can get some things. And you can't put in for anything that you've budgeted for already. So anything in outlay we weren't able to put in for. But we found enough things outside of outlay and some things that we were going to put in for in the future. So this would hopefully save future costs to the county. The biggest one is probably the downloading suite for the squad cars. So we use cameras called WatchGuard, and it's storage capability and software to download those. That comes to about $20,000. So, and that seems like it would be something that would easily qualify because it keeps officers from having to go inside and have contact with each other. It'll be a remote download. So they'll pull the squad car up to the sheriff's department and the device will recognize that there's one of these cameras close and it'll automatically download it just by using Wi-Fi in the air. So we're really hoping we get that. Otherwise, that's something we would be asking for an outlay in the future. We're running out of storage as is. As we keep adding these cameras, the storage capability of what we have is quickly dwindling. So any questions on that or anything else that we've covered?
Your jail population, how is your jail population doing?
I did not bring the totals with me. Just off the top of my head, I can tell you we're down from a normal year. They're still not sentencing as harsh as they were, and probation and parole has taken a stance where they are not revoking probation and not holding people unless it's very extreme circumstances. That's probably the biggest influence in our jail, keeping the population down. Okay. I don't know when the state will change its policy on that, but I assume at some point it'll go back to the way it was.
With our bunks and other issues in our cells, I noticed our transport is up a little bit. Is that something that came about because we were closed down on some of those cells?
I don't think so. It was just sometimes the stars align. We had some individuals picked up on warrants out of the county, some quite a ways away. And then we had several EM1s again. And we end up with a lot of overtime on transports on emergency medicals because officers frequently go to Green Bay and they have to wait for a facility. And sometimes that drags into 12 hours long. And then when we do the transport, it's a 2-man transport all the time when you have somebody going because it's multi-counties away.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for Jason? Go ahead, Scott.
I noticed during the Oneida casino shooting that Algoma and Luxembourg rescue squads were paged out to cover Green Bay rescue squads. Was there any calls for Kewaunee County officers to respond?
There was not. Brown County and Green Bay practice their active shooter response and stuff together. And they're probably a lot easier to rely on who you practice with all the time. That's one of the problems with active shooter in our county. People think, well, can't you just call it a neighboring county or something to come and assist? It's very difficult because your officers that all train together, and we train with the cities and the county, everybody within this county, and they all kind of know certain facilities. If it's at a school or if it's at a business, every officer in the county kind of knows that school or that business or whatnot. If you call somebody from Brown, let's say, and you tell them there's something going on at Kewaunee Fab, we need you to respond there. They've never trained with us before. Yeah, some things are generic, but they don't know all the officers. They don't know all the, we would have a response of a lot of people coming in plain clothes. So they kind of, our officers all know those people in plain clothes. A Green Bay officer wouldn't. So all of a sudden you pull up and there's a drug task force officer with a gun hanging out. It becomes very dangerous for other officers. I'm sure with Oneida, that was fairly quickly contained. Plus their officers know each other to a point, and it's just easier to respond with your own county than it is to bring somebody from outside. Where they would use other counties and where we would use them, certainly we would call for help right away if we had something big, but we would use them more to relieve fire for traffic control, to set up perimeters, to do maybe an inner perimeter on the outside of whatever's going on. And if it got dragged out, certainly we would use them for more things, or we would use like their SWAT team or something like that, where it's individuals that are used to working together that would have a specific duty. So we were not. The other thing is, Oneida is right next to Green Bay, and Green Bay at any given time has, I'm not sure, but it's something like 40 or 50 officers working on their, in the middle of the night, even not counting their investigators and daytime officers and stuff. So they got a heck of a response right off the bat with just who they have.
Okay. Any other questions for Jason? All right. Meeting date.
Did you see Matt's request that if we could do it outside of a Wednesday morning, because he has training every Wednesday now with a program that the county sponsoring in Green Bay. He and Scott and Paul are going to it.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, July is our next scheduled, unscheduled so far. And unless we have a whole lot of stuff in June or July coming up, which I don't see right now, we may scale back our meetings here too. All right.
Sure.
Because it doesn't pay for us just to meet to talk to each other and make things up. Okay. But we'll set a date. Let's set a date that's the 14th. Okay. And let me talk to Matt and see what we can do. But I know it's a hassle for Scott and it's a hassle for Doug because, well, even myself, unfortunately we work during the day, and, even Joe, you got to get that sausage made, man.
That's right.
So
You want to go for July 14th?
we'll set it for the 14th, but that's it'll be tentative on the 14th at 8:15. June 9th, we're still firm. And let's talk to Matt on that and see what we can do. Okay.
Sure.
John, question.
Yes.
So, Luxembourg has the same capabilities of doing these types of calls as Kewaunee does. Do you want to alternate between the two locations like we used to do, or just still continue to keep it here?
Let's leave it here. Do you have recording capabilities over there?
Yes.
Huh?
Ross has got everything set up, from my understanding, the exact same way.
We're at the EOC
No, in the 4-H room.
in the 4-H room. Okay, let's talk to Ross and then we'll see what we're gonna do. But as of right now, just leave it here. Okay. Any travel requests at all? You going any place? No? Okay. Let's see. Comments. All right. I took the opportunity to attend the Milo training. Did anybody else do it? Well, I'm going to tell you, you guys missed a really good session. It was fantastic. You don't realize what those guys go through until you actually get to see it. And they actually offered me the fact that I could have a taser or one of the guns. After watching what these guys do, like I told them, I says, I don't want to hit the suspect and I don't want to be shooting walls. So I just let the professionals do it. If it comes up again, seriously, I would recommend anybody that wants to take it to take it. Thanks, Jason, for offering it. It was fantastic.
It really is good for our officers too. They learn how to talk with individuals to a point. They, learn what could be done, what should be done. And I know, like, just yesterday, the chief of Kewaunee thanked us for putting his guys through it. That they learned a lot about a couple of their officers and some things that they needed to brush up on and stuff. So it's that interactive screen, and you have to yell at the screen and yell at the people, and the trainers can make them do different things based on how good you are at talking to them.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, you're yelling at that screen, and the guy that's running it, he can change exactly what's happening. So it's really weird. It was fantastic. The jail tour was offered to all of us. Who else went? Joe and I? You guys? Okay. I noticed that the jail has not got any better since the last tour that we did 2 years ago. In fact, I can see definitely issues that are coming up more and more. I have no idea how the wiring, I know what it's like at our place with our computers and where they all come together and stuff. You got a real rat's nest there.
Dispatch is like a cockpit on an airplane. It is that cramped, and it's not
I
an
think it's
airplane.
even
There should be
worse
enough
than
room to move around.
The best way is you get 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And that's, seriously, there's no other way to describe it. How in the hell you guys operating there? No clue. And if you got more than one call going at a time, you got a real mess. Because you've got to have a lot of, one guy's on one call, another person's on another call, and there's got to be a ton of feedback going, that the caller one is hearing what caller two is doing and stuff like that. It just needs to change.
The two people should be separated by about from me to you or further.
Absolutely, with
they're
a
touching each
sound
other.
barrier between, really should be.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen what Brown County has and Door County has, and we are definitely not there. And we ain't even in the same building as anybody else. That's how far apart we are.
Well, the ceiling is what really, all them brown spots, their water is coming in. Sooner or later, it's going to interrupt with the wiring.
Well, and there's the other problem. If the ceiling continues to leak, especially in wintertime, you got the heating and cooling. And I know it did transfer station. We had the same issue. We cured it, but it cost money. That's all I've got. Thank you very much for giving us a brief on it.
Thanks for
Let
going
us
through
know.
it.
Let us know as soon as we hear. And I'm sure Scott will keep us advised what's going on with that, with the questions that he sent out. So, Anyone have any other questions for either Tracy or for Jason? Okay, if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Joe, seconded by Doak. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 9 o'clock.